straight into it. So the Xbox and Bethesda showcase finally gave us a proper first reveal of Starfield.
Got the tissues ready, boys.
So Todd Howard and his sick jacket, quote by Swinney, closed the show by walking through a 13-minute demo showing various slices of gameplay and story beats. It included ship combat and over 1,000 planets to explore. Unlike Fallout 4, all dialogue scenes will be in first person, and player character has no voiced dialogue. Release date has been pushed back from the 11th 22 to 2023, which we think will be in the first half of 2023, right? Because they kept on saying that everything in the reveals were in the next 12 months, pretty much. So.
Correct.
Fingers crossed.
So what, like Mike, you know, you're a big, you know, Bethesda Studios fan. What did you feel?
Well,
were you excited?
I'm not even kidding. The reason I have a box of people can't see it on the actual podcast, but on the video you can see it. I've got a paper towel because I've run out of tissues because I've just love that video. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Mike's antics. He doesn't disappoint.
I was not disappointed by that video. Let's just say. Multiple times. Look,
so
all
you're
jokes
hyped
aside,
about this. You're hyped.
No, all jokes aside, I am not hyped about it whatsoever because I don't want to fall for that trap again. We all know Toddy, T-Man. We know what he's done in the past. He makes certain promises and then it's like, oh, look, the product's good, but it's not what he promised kind of thing. So
people have been saying that a lot. Like, I'm not seeing many examples of that, though.
Well, Fallout 76.
What are people talking about?
Fallout 76.
No, but Fallout 76.
Skyrim.
Fallout 76. I think it was just a bad game. I don't think they overpromised with it initially. Like, are people talking like he's like Molyneux? Like,
I don't know. He's nothing like that.
That's
he's
what I
absolutely
just don't
nothing
understand.
Like that. No.
Like, I genuinely think it's Fallout 76 and a little bit of Fallout 4, which wasn't as well received as Fallout 3 and Skyrim, right?
It's still a great game.
I don't think it's that bad.
But that's your opinion. It's a subjective thing, right? So some people didn't like it.
Yeah, no, but the point is that like they went out there saying more than what the game was, and that's what I'm getting at. It's like I don't understand where this narrative has come from.
It's more that again, all jokes aside, I think it's more that something about it is very reminiscent of No Man's Sky, and I know the whole joke about No Man's Skyrim has been going on and on. To me, it looks way, I wouldn't say way better than No Man's Sky, but more like something to get excited in some ways for me. I'm worried that they might do too much procedural generation, which kind of was cool for a bit in No Man's Sky, but after a while it just felt like I had no incentive to really explore any of the planets. Because they weren't handcrafted, it was completely random, it was just another variation of the same thing. It was a really cool, awesome, chill game. No Man's Sky is one of my favorite games of all time. But if it's a similar kind of model with this, it worries me a little bit. If there's a ton more handcrafting, then hell yeah, this would be amazing. I just think, how the hell are they getting, what is it, like a 1,000 planets across multiple systems and stuff? Can they handcraft all that at this scale? Ooh, I don't think so, right?
They're not. They already said that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of procedural generation, but there's a lot of procedural generation in Skyrim as well.
Yeah, there is, but it's still. I think a lot of things are still very much like the actual landmass itself is handcrafted. It's a proper map that was done. It's not procedurally generated.
There was a lot of stuff that was procedurally generated in that game.
Not as the full map. The full map, it's a proper full map. I don't think it's. I don't know how to put it. I don't think the full map itself was procedurally generated.
Pretty much every open world game uses forms of procedural generation.
Yeah, forms. Like, but I'm talking about to the extent of something like No Man's Sky. That's entirely like no one's ever gone to a particular planet and gone, we need some more trees here, and this path should do this.
Yeah. We're also talking about like. Most open world games didn't have multiple thousands of planets to explore.
Of course, but that's what I mean. It's I would dare say almost impossible with what we can do and the resources that we have to focus, delicately on making every single one of those worlds exactly the way they should be. So, there's a little bit of skepticism there, but at the same time, bloody hell, it looks good. So, like, to me, this is fantastic. You get to captain your own ship, upgrade your own ship, and a full proper RPG first-person shooter, and the mechanics actually look fairly solid. I mean, it sort of looked like, Swinney, typical Fallout. It's especially until you upgrade certain skills, you're kind of just aiming blindly almost. Their weapons are super inaccurate. So it felt like there was a little bit of that, but certainly way more solid than something like Fallout 4 in terms of the way the guns feel. Because it always felt a little janky, don't you reckon? The way you sort of played in normal shooting mode. It wasn't
Fallout 4 was a miles ahead of Fallout 3
miles
in
ahead of
terms
Fallout
that.
3, but it still didn't feel like a COD or a Titanfall of like that really tight, awesome controls.
I never wanted it to. Like, it was an RPG with guns. It wasn't a first-person shooter with RPG elements to me. So, anyway, like, I think on that whole Fallout thing, I think anyone that was expecting this to not be Fallout in space, like, was probably, you know, like, I think just had unrealistic expectations. They kind of said up front that in the past that, you know, like, it's going to be a Bethesda game. It's going to be like, it's going to be following on from Elder Scrolls and Fallout and everything. But you know, not everyone's going to hear those comments in the past. I can understand people not knowing exactly what this game was, but I think you can just say, well, it's Bethesda Softworks. They make their style of game. And I miss playing these games. Like, I haven't played one of their games since Fallout 4 because Fallout 76 didn't appeal to me, and it's been ages since Fallout 4 came out. So I'm super pumped to jump into another one of those worlds. When it comes to the space stuff, I think that's cool, but that's not my kind of thing. You know, maybe it will hook me and I'll love it, but there's games out there that already scratch that itch, like your Elite Dangerous and all those games that are obviously designed around space combat and, you know, exploring and things. But I just love, you know, the clips that they showed of you walking around the towns and speaking to NPCs. That's the stuff that I really want from these games. I think it looks absolutely awesome. You know, performance-wise, what they showed looked rough in places, and I think Digital Foundry's kind of done a bit of an analysis, but obviously they're analysing a trailer, like they're not analysing a game. But I think that I'd be interested to know what this demo was running on, for instance. You know, was it a Series X?
Yeah, I had that question as well.
Yeah, because like you'd expect PC to be a lot more solid performance-wise than what they were showing, but also, yeah, maybe it's good that they showed something that was, you know, not perfect, because then it gives people realistic expectations. Because
that's a good point. Yeah,
if that's what it's like, then you know. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, and I think this is the benefit of just different opinions. I thought like the demo and the whole reveal, to me, it was super rough. I was like, shit, man, this game looks rough as fuck. And, you know, this is also what they want to showcase. So they're not going to like pull out the shit bits, right, that aren't running as well, that they hope will get optimized, and probably a big reason why they have pushed it out. And I'm like watching, I'm like, you can see the animation. Like, this is not, you know, I'm kind of a bit over Digital Foundry a little bit, because it's like, it almost gets too much in the minutia for me. I think for, you know, like where there's obvious frame rate drops and stuff like that, I like, you know, their analysis in that space. But even for me watching it, I'm like, you know, the cloud smoke coming from the vehicle when it landed, and the animation of, you know, some of the enemies or the NPC, you know, sort of, you know, animals that are on the terrain. And I don't know, just like the whole vibe and style of the game really isn't clicking with me at all. And like, I'm definitely going to play it, but I'm kind of on the same page as you, Sweetie. I love sci-fi as a genre in general, but the idea of taking a ship, flying off the planet, going to another planet, doing all that kind of stuff, fighting people in the air, it literally has no appeal to me. Like,
damn,
I don't know why.
That's so opposite to me.
Yeah, but it's just
I love that shit.
Subjective thing, right? Like,
of course, yeah.
I'm totally happy, like, you know, Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild or whatever, or Skyrim, going across the land. That feels normal for some reason, because it's there's not that weird transition. But going into a ship and then flying off, like, and I've done this in games before, I just don't like it. Like, I just kind of want to get teleported to the next world, and I don't think that's the way this is going to work. Maybe they will have like some kind of system where it's just like you go from one planet, you go to the ship, and then you can skip to the next planet. I'm not sure.
Well, do I have a game for you called The Outer World?
Yeah, it's literally what happens in it. I actually had almost the opposite worry about this, that I did not see any scenes where you took off and he went through the atmosphere to get
No,
to
they've
space.
confirmed. They've confirmed that there's no like surface to like space transition. Yeah, it's not like No Man's Sky.
So you can't actually take off and fly up. And
you
go
can't,
through.
for instance, if you're in space and go straight and there's like a seamless transition. No.
See that is actually a disappointing thing to me because I'm the opposite. I'm like, I love that experience of fully immersing myself in that world where I get into my ship and I take off and I go through the atmosphere or vice versa. I love that shit. That's one of the coolest experiences in No Man's Sky. So not having that is a little disappointing, but it still looks phenomenal. So.
I think what you're saying, holds a lot of merit with the fact that this game certainly looks janky in the footage they've shown as well, but that's almost like all of their games that I've ever played have always had an element of that. They've never looked polished to like an nth degree, if that makes sense. Like especially like even like Oblivion is rough in places, and Morrowind can be as well. And then you get to the Fallout games, and and Skyrim, as you know, is definitely rough in a lot of places.
Still an amazing game though. That's the thing, isn't it?
It is, but I feel like the space element could like expose that a little bit harder. Like if there's real jank while you're flying in space and stuff like that. I don't know, something about that mentally just feels like that's going to be more pronounced. And I also agree with you, Mike. I'm really worried about the procedural generation and the length of the game and the scope of the game. I'm contrary to what everyone else wants. I don't want longer games. I want more curated games. And when they're kind of coming out and going, oh, it's going to be 20% bigger than Skyrim and all these other things, it's like that to me is not a selling point. That's like the opposite. I'm like, does that mean you're just going to generate stuff and then put some finishing touches on it? I'm like, that's just not that interesting to me.
Well, with that, I actually like the fact that there's more, not less, for the specific reason that if there was set, let's say 40 planets, I'd feel like there's got to be content that I have to see on everything. Whereas if there's 1,000, I know, look, there's obviously going to be key ones I go to in side quests and stuff, but a lot of the rest are probably just going to be optional things to get resources and stuff. So I'm like, no, you're never going to expect it to go visit 1,000 planets. Yeah. So it almost like comforts me the fact that, you know what I mean? It's like the fact that there's more means I'm probably going to do less. If that makes sense, weirdly.
How about if there's an achievement to visit all 1,000 planets?
Oh, well then, yeah. Of course I'll be doing that. Bloody Todd.
I hope he does that.
But look, like this game is... Like, would you say that it's the most hyped game at the moment that people are waiting for?
I'd have to think.
Breath of the Wild 2?
Look, I'd say Breath of the Wild 2, maybe God of War Ragnarok. You know, I think there's some games that are on that level. I wouldn't say it's the most hyped, but I'd have to kind of go back and think about. Oh yeah, it's up there. Them saying it's like the most anticipated RPG of all time in the showcase is
that was
very much a lot of wank there. So
yeah, I mean, you could mount the argument to say that, but I don't think it's definitive. You know what I mean? But yeah, like the last question I had was, unless you guys had anything else, was, do you think the release date will slip beyond the first half of 2023?
Look, it's always possible. I think they really need... Xbox don't have a holiday game now anyway. They really need to get this game out because this is the one that's going to kind of almost like hold them up through till those other games that are on the horizon. Because it's not going to be games like Redfall that are going to do it.
No.
You know? So,
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? Do you think it's coming out or...
No, I mean, I think they've already delayed it a fair bit. So I'm confident it will be coming out mid or early to mid 2023, but at the same time, do they need to rush it? I'd rather have a more polished final experience, than have to do that, because I know I'm going to get it day one. It's inevitable. I'm probably not going to pre-order it because I don't pre-order games really anymore, but unless they have really cool special editions or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I've learned my lesson, but...
I mean, you can just play it on Game Pass. Why would you need to pre-order it?
Yeah, because if they have a really cool edition of some sort, I probably would pre-order something like this, because that's just how I am. But at the same time, it's the kind of game that, and from the history of these games, they've always had pretty good bugs at the start. So I'm kind of expecting they will, but if they can bake it a little bit more and learn from previous experiences, that would also be good. So, yeah.
I do wonder, though, if people will be so forgiving, given that it's on Game Pass. So it's not just fans of Skyrim, you know, Bethesda-style games. It feels like everyone's going to have a crack at this game. And, yeah, I just kind of wonder, like, with the hit to their reputation with Fallout 76... Plus, then, you know, they just make janky games. Like, I played Skyrim 10 years after it came out, and it's still janky as hell. Like, I was like, what the fuck? This is crazy. Like, you know, has anyone seen these bugs? And it's like, the whole game's full of bugs. So, I do wonder about the launch of the game and just how janky it is and how people will receive that. Like, whether... I feel like they've almost given them grace because their games are so good overall to have the bugs. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it lands this time. All right, well, let's move on to another game that was highly anticipated and covered quite early in the Xbox and Bethesda session.